Many times when we work on our photographs, we make adjustments that are more general or more global. In other words, we brighten up the overall image, or we change the color temperature for the overall photograph, or we increase the contrast for the overall image. Yet what about those situations where we want to work on a specific aspect of a photograph? Maybe we want to target a particular color and we want to change that color, either its actual tone or its saturation or its brightness value. Well, what we can do in those situations is we can take advantage of Lightroom's HSL controls. And here what I want to do is deconstruct those controls so that we can really know how to use these when it comes to making these type of real specific changes to our photographs. Alright, well in the Develop module, you'll notice that we have a panel. It's titled HSL, Color, and Black and White. If we click on HSL, we'll see that we have a few different options here. We can make changes to hue or to saturation by clicking on saturation, or luminance, or for that matter, we can click on all. We can see all of these controls here. Alright, well how do these different controls vary from one another? Well, hue is really interesting. This allows us to shift color. We can't completely change it, but we can kind of swing color one way or another. In other words, my reds, I can make those a little bit more pink or magenta, or I can make them a little bit more orange. Now, if I ever want to reset one of these sliders, all I need to do is double-click the triangle icon. It will take it back to the default setting of 0. So again, here you can see that I can swing these colors one way or another. And the interesting thing about this is what I can do is I can bring colors a little bit closer together. And you can see that I'm doing that here. I'm limiting my color palette, so to speak. And it's interesting in the sense that it allows us to control how color actually works in our photographs. Well, let's say we've made some adjustments, but we don't like those. How can we reset all of these? Well, all you need to do is on a Mac, hold down the Option key. On a PC, hold down the Alt key. That will change the hue to Reset Hue. Click on that option. It will reset all of those controls. All right, what about saturation? Well, as you would imagine, this allows us to either increase saturation or decrease saturation. So here, as I'm removing saturation from this photograph, you can see that I'm going to be left with a really limited color palette of just a couple of tones here that I can then increase. So what this can do for us is it can allow us to target specific areas. Now sometimes it's because we want to make color pop and snap and really come to life. Other times what you may find is that your reds will be a little bit overdone because the camera sensor is really sensitive to reds. So in those situations, simply desaturating the reds just a little bit can really help out certain photographs. Alright, well let's reset all of these controls. Hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC. We'll click on Reset Saturation. Alright, what about luminance? Well, this allows us to control brightness value. For example, let's say I want to work on the aquas here. If I want to make those a little bit darker, all I need to do is click and drag to the left or click and drag to the right to make those a little bit brighter. And as I change these values, you can see that it's affecting the overall color as well as the brightness, because the actual hue or saturation is directly related to the overall color. So if we make a color change, let's say in luminance, we can then go back and try to bring in some saturation, although it's going to be pretty limited because this is so dark. On the other hand, let's brighten this up a little bit more. And now when I drag my saturation, you're going to see that there's a little bit of a stronger change. So one of the things to keep in mind is that all of these controls are interrelated. Alright, well let's reset this one more time. Hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC, then click on Reset. Now because all of these controls are related to each other, there's a new feature inside of Lightroom 3, and that's called color. And what color does is it just gives us another way to work on these different values. Here you'll notice that it's divided up into different colors. I have my red, hue, saturation, and luminance, my orange, hue, saturation, and luminance, and so on and so forth. So what I can do here is change the luminance value of the reds, and then I can also shift the hue of those reds, and then at the same time control the overall saturation. So again, it's just another way to access these different controls. Well, let's reset these. We can do that either by double-clicking the triangle icon. That will reset the saturation to 0. Or hold down the Option key on a Mac, Alt key on a PC. What we can do here then is click on Reset Red, and it will reset all of those values for that particular color. Alright, well now that we've been introduced to the what of hue, saturation, and luminosity, Let's dig a little bit into the how. How do we actually begin to work with these controls so that we can make our photographs a little bit better?